Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zach Cherry, and with me as always is...
We're Americans.
Or, well, I am. Eddie of Edward is Truth.
I'm Canadian. For anyone who didn't know that. Yeah.
We're North Americans.
We
North Americans.
and today. Oh God.
I know, right?
We're talking about Us. Jordan Peele's second movie, released March 22nd, 2019. Obviously, we are preparing for the release of his third movie, Nope, which is coming out later this month. Yeah, the end of July. And we already covered Get Out a few podcasts back, so we're staggering them. You know, we're going to be covering all three. So, Eduardo, do you have a synopsis you would love to lead us in with?
I do, and I'm going to try to maintain this voice.
Oh, God.
Should I just do the traditional one?
You do whatever feels right for you.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see how long I can last.
Okay.
Once upon a time, in 1986, a young girl named Adelaide wandered away from her parents, entering a funhouse on the outskirts of a seaside amusement park in Santa Cruz, where she encountered a doppelgänger of herself in the House of Mirrors. Then, years later, in 2019, an adult Adelaide returned to Santa Cruz for a vacation with her husband, Gabe Wilson, and their children Zora and Jason, haunted by memories of the childhood encounter. Adelaide tries to reveal to Gabe what she experienced and what she dreads, but she is stopped by a family of 4.
I'm going to do this. I'm going to get through it.
She is stopped by a family of 4 dressed in red that appears in the driveway of the home before breaking into the house, introducing themselves as the Wilsons' Tethered Shadows. Adelaide's double, Red, explains they each share a soul with their look-alike counterparts, and they have come to untether themselves by any means necessary, leaving the Wilsons to contemplate how disconnected we can really be when our pursuers look just like us.
Oh my God. Are you gonna be able to do is your voice good still?
Oh, I feel great.
Do you need some
How do I
tea and
sound?
honey?
Just a little squirt of lemon
I'm just
down my
like, I'm
throat,
just
I'll be all
listening
right.
to your like regular like narration voice came out a little, but all I could think when you were doing that is just like it sounded like Betty Davis talking, but like with a very like hoarse throat.
Joan Crawford is dead. Good.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that's hard. She really. If I thought Lupita Nyong'o deserved an Oscar before for this performance, I definitely do now that I've attempted to speak, and she didn't break character any time while they were shooting the movie either. Like, I mean, whenever she was playing Red, and also I don't like that term break character. I mean, I think she was just in the zone and didn't want to drop it because it's better to just kind of let it, take over and just kind of ride the wave. And my God,
that's. I always love when characters or like actors play more than one character. Like that to me is the most like skillful thing you can do as a performer. And we talked about this in the Chucky season 1 pod with Fiona Dora playing.
Oh yeah,
play like 4 or 5 different roles in that. But yeah, I definitely agree. Like Lupita Nyong'o deserved some sort of recognition. However, she does sort of have the last laugh because like her initial Oscar win, she was actually still in acting school when she won that. So it's like it's kind of like you show up to school the next day with your Oscar and it's just like no, to the teacher, just like, you don't tell me what to do, I've got the Oscar.
I mean, if she's a Scorpio, maybe.
Oh, Jesus. Stop belittling my people. I don't know what she is, but what's your history with Us? Did you see it when it first came out?
I did. I was very excited because, we were all bowled over by Get Out, most of us. Yeah. And I was definitely in that camp. And I remember I went with my sister. We were both very excited to see the next Jordan Peele movie. And it was an interesting sit the first time because I feel like we were expecting another Get Out and we didn't get one. And it's not that we were disappointed, but we both kind of walked away. We had a very long conversation after the movie Us. I think we sat and had dinner for about 2.5 hours in this place and just talked about it, but kind of both felt like the verdict was, it's good. I'm glad Jordan Peele's kind of on this track. I prefer Get Out, both of us. But I like it. Now, I would definitely see the next Jordan Peele movie, but I wasn't afraid really, or I wasn't, like whatever. And then I went home that night and I had to I think I just had to throw something out in the bin out in the front. And I immediately just heard in my head the line, "There's a family in our driveway." And I didn't want to go outside. And I was like, I don't, if I open the door, I'm going to see those silhouettes. Because I do have a driveway, I do have a street lamp that would backlight them and everything. It works too well. And I was terrified. And then the rest of the week, images kept occurring to me and other things, just layers upon layers of things kept occurring to me. And I kept texting my sister back going like, did you realize that blah, blah, blah? Or did you think that blah, 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 blah? Or she would do it to me. And we just kept this conversation going for a few weeks. And I think I realized it was far more relevant in my psyche, just the way it occupied my whole spirit for now that it was part of me. And I've definitely, I still love Get Out. In our pod, I discussed how much I love it, and how kind of perfect I think it is.
What we said.
Yeah, but with this movie, there's something about Jordan Peele's attempt to kind of tell. I feel like this one was for him. Get Out was for us. Get Out was to get us to pay attention to him, and it was very audience oriented.
How ironic that the movie called Us was not made for us, but him.
I mean, it was, but I feel like he was a little more confident in trying the audience's patience and it just like
you can take more risks once you've already established yourself as a director who has their finger on the pulse of a generation of horror fans, we'll say. And a redefinition of basically what the genre is in and of itself, because like I feel like it wasn't the only movie of its time. Like there were A24 we discussed before, like putting out a lot of content that is kind of like horror, traditional horror adjacent or horror homage, but also art house horror or something like that. And it's it can be a very mixed bag. And I feel like Jordan Peele
with Us has definitely kind of established himself as a quasi mixed bag. You know, like you I really don't know what to expect from Nope.
He's a genre director. Like that's what I'll say for this movie, because I saw it when it first came out as well, and my reception of it was positive. I definitely had issues, and those issues still exist, and I mean, I'm sad to say that I probably like it less now than I did when I first saw it. So in that regard, I totally agree that Get Out is the better Jordan Peele movie. But at the same time, I see what he's doing, and I respect and I appreciate it, because he's not making the same movie over and over again. And we're seeing this like with Nope coming out. It's like, I already did sort of like the Twilight Zone, or like the doppelganger thing, and now we're going into UFOs and extraterrestrials. So we're never going to get the same movie with Jordan Peele. And I think people who are expecting another Get Out are going to be sorely I don't know what I'm saying. They won't be happy, because
they'll be disappointed.
Because there's not going to be another movie like that. But at the same time, like I'm excited to see the trajectory of his career, because maybe he'll get to a point where he does like a whodunit murder mystery, which I think would be awesome, and I want to see like what influences he brings to that. I think that the issues that I had with this movie are more so logic based, and not to say that I have a problem with what's going on here, because I kind of, I could say like, well, it's a silly story. Like, there's all this shit that's going on that it's like, it doesn't really, like, it requires you to accept something that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, they maybe like gave you too much information. I feel like maybe if they had left like an air of mystique surrounding the doppelgangers, that would have made it, that would have extended the conversation longer, because I don't hear a lot of people talking about this movie anymore. I think when it first came out, people were like, oh, the symbology and the hidden imagery of this and all that, and that's still there. That this movie is like filled with that, just as Get Out was. But I don't think that people are still talking about this movie the way that, like someone would still be talking about The Shining, because I mean, for me personally, like, this movie's played out. I just rewatched it, obviously, for the podcast, literally like 2 hours ago, and I was just, you talk about how you see movies sometimes, or like you watch movies again and you can like get up and go do laundry and like the dishes and stuff. That's how I felt during the whole movie. I was just like, I wasn't really attached to it, that I could have I'm just like fast forwarded it and been done with it early. And not to say that it's a bad movie, but I was just like, I've already gotten everything that I could out of this. There's nothing else I can get from this movie at all ever again. And again, not to say that means that it's a bad movie, but I think that it did everything that it needed to. It was more so it served its purpose at the time, and now we can move on from it. But I will say, just in terms of like the illogical stuff I was speaking of, I don't like necessarily say that that's a downfall of the movie, because one of my favorite horror directors is Dario Argento, and a handful of his movies, like some of his best movies, in terms of like the script, are not logical at all. So it's just kind of about the art of it and the direction. And I think certainly Jordan Peele, even though maybe the story is kind of a little wonky for me, at least visually, I find that like every frame is engrossing. Like, I can watch this movie and appreciate it on that level.
Okay. With me, I think it kind of, I imagine it's what falling in love is like, where you where you meet someone and you don't really know how you feel, and then they register on your radar, and it's like, oh, all right. And then the more time you spend with them, the more time you want to spend with them. That's how my relationship with the movie has grown, to the point where now I watch it and I think about so much more beyond what's on screen. Also because I hadn't seen it in a minute,
Yeah.
But I mean, I had literally forgotten something that like engrossed me almost immediately was just like we get that opening universal globe shot and everything, you know, but we've got the sounds of the ocean over it, and it immediately took me into. I went to the year it was released. They had at Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights that year. They had a maze for us, and the exterior was built to resemble the shaman's vision quest.
Yeah.
Like you're going in it, and they even played ocean sounds and like carnival sounds, like, you know, like in the line while you're waiting to go inside, and then to go inside that proscenium, hearing the ocean sounds and everything like that. I was, and then there was also in faint distance you hear, you know, and I'm like, ah!
What's
And I didn't
the
realize.
composer's name? Michael Abel?
Look at you putting me on the spot.
I know you have the notes.
Yeah, I have
Because
notes.
it's the same
about,
guy
like,
who did Get Out.
Yeah. Here, let me look again.
I know that the translations of like the music in Get Out were literally like Run, Brother, like Get Out.
Yes.
So I don't know if you knew if there was like some sort of correlation to the like in this movie.
That I don't. It is Michael Abels, by the way. He's the
Okay.
composer.
Close enough.
That
I just dropped an S.
No, because all I know, based off of like my Blue, I looked for the commentary, and I don't know if my Blue just doesn't have one. I have the Steel book, like it should have everything. But yeah, I know there's a commentary for Get Out, and I was looking for a commentary for Us, and I didn't find one. So all I did was watch
I didn't even
all
look.
the special features, and yeah, but they didn't discuss the score in depth, like, you know, in a very particular way. I still think it's incredibly effective for, you know, those few noises that I made, but also when Adelaide is making that voyage down underground to, you know, her climactic finale with her
Down the
doppelganger.
escalator, yeah.
Yes, and just that entire score, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is making me want to like buy. I haven't bought a movie score in a long time because I'm not home enough to sit down and enjoy them the way, you know, I wish I could be, because I like sitting. I like when I play a movie score, I don't want it like in the background while I'm driving. I want to sit down. I want to have like a drink, maybe even a meal or a snack. All other media is off, and I just put on some music and I just absorb it. Like I love.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I think like
for me, and
I
could do
like
that
the
with the
score's fun. I think I connect more with the sort of the instrumental down tempo version of the I've Got Five on It.
Oh,
that we hear after that part when she starts like commences the final battle with Red, and you get that down, you know that.
Yeah.
That goes.
It's great.
Like I love
it's
that.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And also just there's something I loved that I did get this time that I had never really noticed before, because of course the Symbology stands out. There have been so many YouTube videos made pointing out, you know, the Symbology, pointing out things that, like, you know, like, because I thought I had paid attention to this movie, and then I see people like going through it with like a fine-tooth comb, like pointing out this and that and this and that and that. Just, you know, like a still frame of, you know, like that establishing shot of the television with, like, you know, the VHS tapes stacked on either side of it and everything, like, and the relevancy of them, like, to the movie. So I won't spend a lot of time on that because, you know, just go on YouTube, you can watch them talk about it. But
Well, no, I mean, like, I want to know.
Oh, you don't know? Oh, okay, cool.
No.
Things pointed out, like how Chud is one of the VHS tapes alongside the and it's all about, like, I can't even remember what Chud stands for. I've seen it so long ago. But creatures
Cannibalistic,
humanoid underground
dwellers.
Something like that, yeah. And it's all about things from beneath, like, coming up, you know, to
Well, because they even mentioned, like, later on in the news report, they're like, it looked like they were coming out of the sewers.
Yeah. And Goonies, same thing, like, you know, like going down underground to, like, discover, like, an adventure and everything like that that otherwise you would not have had. Nightmare on Elm Street was there because there's certainly a lot of visual cues to Nightmare
like
in this movie.
The shadow of the scissors.
Yes,
like Freddy's
with
claw.
the glove, in the context of the glove, and also even just when Jason's doppelganger Pluto, the little boy, pulls his mask up and reveals the burned face. For the first time, I was just kind of like, Freddy Krueger. Oh my God. I know. I always just thought like, oh, it's a horrible burned little boy. Oh, that's so terrible. And for the first time, I was just kind of like, oh, it's another Freddy reference. What is wrong with me?
I will say, like, this is definitely, there's more horror in this than Get Out, for sure. Like, I think for anyone who's more into, like, the, like, straight up scares rather than psychological terror, Us might be the more preferable one to you. But it's funny because another reference I noticed was The Shining when they're ascending the stairs at the home of I don't know what their last, like Kitty and Josh and the two daughters, the Tylers, the two daughters who are dead, and they're lying on the floor in the exact same way that the girls from The Shining are when Danny goes down the hall and sees them. And interesting, I'm just looking at the IMDb trivia here, and it says that Jordan Peele gave the cast 11 horror films to watch so they would have a shared language when filming. And these movies were Jaws, Dead Again, The Shining, The Babadook. It follows Jianghua Hongrion, I don't know if I'm saying that right, and I've never heard of it. The Birds, Funny Games, the original from '97. Oh
shit!
Martyrs, Let the Right One In, and The Sixth Sense. So I haven't even seen all of those.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm wondering. But
what he means by shared language, because those are all like, every one of those movies is so different from the next one that it makes me wonder, like, what exactly is the tone that he was going for with this? Because it does. I don't want to say that this feels scattered in a way, but I definitely see, like, maybe like the horror that is present is kind of like, it is all over the place. There's nothing. There's not really one main threat, really, or thing to be scared of. It's just almost like everything in this movie you're supposed to fear.
And that's actually something that I think I criticize a lot of movies on this pod for, that I find this movie actually gains its strength in terms of the prolonged ambiguity as far as the character's point of view, or at least if you're watching Us for the first time, you probably believe, even though Adelaide has a history that we're slowly uncovering and everything like that, and that she's the one screaming, the house is on fire to people who don't know what fire looks like or what it feels like or what it smells like. But even she doesn't know exactly why, or I think we're led to believe maybe she doesn't know exactly why what's happening is happening. She just knows it's bound to happen because of some kind of like gut feeling that she shares with her husband. But for most of the characters on screen, they have no explanation for what's going on for most of the movie. And so often I feel like that is something that actually is an impediment to my enjoyment of a film, because I said it with Cursed, I've said it with other movies that we've talked about, where I'm like, just get to it. Get the people knowing what's going on so they can get gear up, and then they can band together and they can fight it and they can defeat it, and we can have an actual movie. We can have an actual push and pull. But the thing is, what I like that Jordan Peele does is that the push and pull comes afterwards, and it comes after the first viewing, because you go back to the movie and you look at Adelaide knowing who she is and knowing what she is really looking at and what she is really running from and what she is really protecting. And it's one of those cases where you get to actually watch a movie at least 2 times,
I agree with that, because I saw it the first time, and the second time, obviously, you're watching it from a different perspective through that character. Right. But I would, like, every time that I've rewatched this after, I'm not into it. So I think, like, that's the thing. And I think maybe had it been more ambiguous, that would have left people having discussions about this for years, after, like, decades after. Who knows? Maybe people are. I never hear anyone talking about this anymore. Maybe this was a bad episode to choose.
Not in my opinion. I love this movie,
Yeah.
but I also just love the fact that like I thought about my first viewing again while I was watching it again. Like that's something that's outside the context of the movie in and of itself. Yet you can't help but kind of like remember it. And I remember thinking the first time I moved through it that Adelaide was set up as essentially this final girl who, in a very traditional sense, is set up with even a potentially like traumatic backstory. Like we're led to believe we're watching a movie about a little girl who had something just intense happen to her at a very, very young age, and then she grew up and was always haunted by it, and now she's developed this kind of sense, and she's the one who's going to like kind of like usher her family through it and save them. And then the movie turns out to be, I don't know if it's the exact opposite of that, but it has more layers and more, shall we say, moral ambiguity, because there is no right party and there is no, but there's plenty of wrong decisions.
And that's very laden in the kind of the subtext, which I feel, again, it's a little on the nose. Like it's not subtle at all with the like we're Americans and like things like they're basically, it's a political statement, and it's like very prominent throughout the at least the last 2/3 of the movie. But I will agree with you that the movie isn't the same like throughout, because we do think that we're just dealing with the one threat of the doppelganger family. So it is a surprise when we get to the scene with Josh and Kitty, and then their doppelgangers jump out, because I wasn't expecting that. And that was kind of a game changer within the movie, because now you see that like this isn't just an isolated incident dealing with the one family. This is like an apocalyptic scope. Of like the entire country. I would say it seemed like it was isolated to just the States, but I did like that. And you even get like kind of like there are clues, because when what's the husband's name? Gabe, when he's out on the boat with his doppelganger, who's I think is Abraham. Yeah. Oh my God, that's it. Okay. Well, I'll just say this point first. And he's like, he does his like, call, and then you hear someone else calling out. So that's like indication that there are others of them at that point. But yeah, I was going to say, like when the credits come up, he's literally like, Jordan Peele has given a name for every character. Even characters were named that I'm like, I don't know, who is this person supposed to be? But each one of them has a name for the doppelganger too. And even though like with most of the characters, we never hear what their doppelganger name is, which is just like, how could, I mean, all they do is like moan and do their thing. So it's just like, it's just funny that he's basically like in his own headcanon, he's decided that this person's has a doppelganger name that, we don't even know about. So I think that this is, you're right in a way that like this was a movie that was more so made for Jordan Peele. I think that like he's really the only one that knows what the hell's going on here for absolute certain. But
and that doesn't bother me though. Like that's actually something, I don't know, it seems so deeply personal, and I always gravitate toward things that are told by personal stories that are told by people I respect. I can usually get on board with that. I can definitely get on board with this one, but because even there was something watching the special features that I don't think gets revealed within the body of the movie as it is edited in its final theatrical version. But he discusses the names of the Tethered and basically kind of says Red is the one who named them because they didn't have speech before. So what use would they have had for names?
I mean, they still don't have speech.
Right, yeah. But I mean, they're attempting it, like, and she basically named her husband Abraham because he was the great liberator, Abraham Lincoln, and basically, I guess in his own head, which again, I love this about him as a screenwriter, gave her justification for why she would name this one that and that one that, and and it makes me wonder how many of them did she name, and how did she? Do they know their names?
That's where like the logic starts to come. Like how far do these tunnels stretch underneath the country? Because I mean, just you would think that like because they're sort of set up that like they're mimicking all of our moves.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would think like, okay, well, what happens when you drive back home to wherever they live? And they get in the car, but then all of their doppelgangers are still in Santa Cruz, and it's just like, did they also get in some sort of like tram underground and zip all the way down to, say if they live in Los Angeles or somewhere?
But see, you say that, and it just makes me imagine. See, this is what I love doing, my headcanon, and I love love questions like this because it immediately makes me think about they stand in a formation as though they were in a car, and they walk. Because
but then they're not keeping up, like they're
suck.
But then like
no, and they don't keep up, but they have to walk until they get there because that's where their doppelgangers are going. Like I love shit like that because it sounds even.
Well, because we see them like standing and like simulating like the roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
And see that's where the thing like I didn't need to see that. I didn't. It would have the mystique of not seeing what happens to them, but just like understanding like like what I really liked was when she read that. The human body, like you can separate it into, or you can make a duplicate, but there's only one soul, and that soul has to be shared between the two, because that at least gives a motivation for what they're doing, and that's all I need to understand. But for everything like to the suggestion that it was part of like a government experiment and it's just like, so like babies were cloned at one point and they were all put in this underground facility and then they were just forgotten about, and then they just went about their business and got together with the people who were getting together on the surface, and like that to me is just the over explaining of just things that's what takes me out of it.
Well, see, maybe it's because I'm a U.S. citizen. There's something about the how can I put this? There's something about the inclination as a people to move forward with some huge life-altering decision, like cloning everybody and housing them underground to try and control. I mean, here we talk about Zora in the car talking about how that the government puts fluoride in the water to try and control our minds and everything like that, already laying the groundwork for governmental conspiracy and for how to what lengths is our government going to go to try and control our minds. And the thing is, anything for me feels plausible in terms of like what a government is, especially mine, is willing to go through to try and remain in power and keep the people submissive, but keep them also like give them this illusion, at least the people who are above the ground, give them this illusion of freedom, when really they're tethered to the people who are living under the ground as much as the people under the ground are tethered to them. They're just living in the blissful ignorance. And there's something about even just like the classism about that, because I don't feel like classism is a topic that gets addressed as much when we're discussing the United States of America as, say, racism or any other kind of like prejudice. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to get into that too deeply, but one thing.
Well, I think
what's
interesting is that this is very much about classism, because the Wilsons are obviously like very well off. They've got a summer home. And I remember in the like initial stages of the production, Jordan Peele said like, this is not a movie about race, right? As Get Out was. And it was more so, that's where, it kind of became apparent that he's making movies and casting black actors because these are, the people who are not represented in horror. So it's more of just like incidental that they happen to be black, but they're part of this
right.
higher class of people, because even like there's this rivalry between Gabe and Josh of just like, oh well, he has
Right.
backup generator and he has like the nicer boat and things, but it's just like you got a summer home, you know, like, and you got a boat, you got the
beautiful
car
wife,
daddy,
you've got great kids, and you've got But and that's another thing about that. Okay, I've been thinking about this because I've been revisiting my movie collection behind me, and I have them categorized by timeline, like chronologically. And I've been focusing a lot on the 70s and the 80s.
Yeah.
I feel like a weather girl right here. For those of you who can't see, who are listening, I'm gesturing behind me like a weather girl. But but anyway, my
or a weather.
but one thing that I've been noticing about the movies from the 70s and the 80s that resonates with me so often. I think I've even brought it up when we talk about, movies like Exorcist and everything. Is just like the reality that the realistic take it feels like you're getting from movies like that, just because of like maybe a grain, maybe it's because of like the messy house, or even just like the nature of the family, like we discussed in Poltergeist and stuff like that. What I love about Us is it's one of the, I'd say, top films for me in recent years. Let's say maybe like the last 10 years during this, kind of like high def 4K resolution revolution that we have going on, where everything is so pretty and all the lines are so clean and everybody's skin is so clear, and if it isn't, we can tell. Yeah. And so, there are all these tricks that people use to like, over light people to try and make them, like blow out like any kind of like imperfections that they may have, and people end up looking probably a lot better than they do, unless a director knows how to shoot them. But the thing that I love about this movie, everybody looks beautiful, that's fine, but I don't doubt through their interactions and through the way they just kind of like occupy the same space with each other, that they are absolutely a bona fide family. I feel this authenticity in HD that I don't think is rampant. I don't know. I love feeling like I'm getting to know people rather than I'm getting exposition on a character. I will take, the former over the latter any day. And I definitely feel through observations and through even just like, some of the lighter moments with this family. A lot of them are due to Winston Duke's portrayal of the character. Jordan Peele even said when he met him, he was like, I wonder how I'm going to make this guy kind of the fool of the family. And, like as in the court jester and everything like that. And then he met him and he was just kind of like, oh, no, I don't have to do anything. I'll just tell him to do that. Just do that Winston Duke thing that you do, because he's just a big, silly,
the police
lovable...
are on their way. I love when he's also, when he's in the car, and he's just like, okay, we don't always have to be talking, and then 2 seconds later, Santa Cruz, it's just like, but I love it,
And his affection for his boat, like, it seems like, it's something you don't want to shit on because it's Dad's, so it's Dad's. Look how happy he is, even though we're all sitting here going like, do we all have
rolling
to get
our
on that
eyes,
thing with yeah, right. And that's another thing with just talking about the cast now, like Shahadi Wright Joseph, who plays Zora and Umbre. Okay, I gotta say, I don't know if it's just an affinity I feel for her, because oftentimes when there's a dynamic that I think is captured with an older sibling and a younger sibling, I am an older sibling, I see her in the Tyler's home when they're going after him, when she takes up that golf club. Yeah. And then Jason picks up the little geode on a stand and pulls his mask down, and she just gives him this look. And then kind of rolls her eyes like, all right, whatever, if that's what you need to feel comfortable. Okay, as long as you're going to fight with me, fine. Like, and it just felt so, I was just like, I know I've given that look. I know I've been that sibling. And I know that if I were fighting for my life and my sister was like, wait, I need my, my shield, or my, like whatever I have, like just to kind of like, feel like, this powerhouse. It's like, all right, pull your mask down. Can we go?
I definitely, okay, I will say, like the cast here is transcendent of this family, because this is another family. Like if the movie was just, and it is primarily, like, they're the ones that are on the screen for the most part, other than when we were at the Tylers for a couple of minutes there. And, you know, I don't need to see these characters dealing with this crazy apocalyptic situation. I could just see them like going to the mall and trying to like figure out, you know, how are we going to coordinate this, and just the drama that will come out from that experience. And that's what I love. I think that's the most successful. Like, if you have characters that you could just sit and watch do the most mundane things and still get a kick out of them, you know, as long as, like, obviously the dialogue is good and it's well directed, which obviously Jordan Peele does here, then that's all I need. You know, this didn't even have to be horror. I'm glad it is, but it's just like, I would sit there and watch the Wilsons, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe solve murder mysteries, you know, just like.
Maybe that's what they'll do from now on. They'll go off and solve all those mysterious murders that are happening at the hands of the Tethered.
Yeah.
But no, I also love, like, Jordan Peele spoke about, like, in terms of, like, their placement. I already said that, like, Gabe is the fool or the court jester. It was interesting because, like, later when the shaman's vision quest becomes Merlin's forest, I love that there's a background for that, just in the sense that, like, he seemed to set up the family the way you would set up, I guess, a kingdom, like, in terms of, like, who are the most important people in that kingdom. And I guess the jester's important, but he said that Adelaide was, you know, the leader, the ruler of the house, obviously. And that Zora was the warrior, you know, like the knight in the armor. And that, I loved this, that Jason is the magician. He is Merlin, the magician, because he's the one who deals with illusion. And it deals with observation. Like, Zora seems very proactive and very just kind of like, let's get up there and go. But at the very end of the movie, if we can jump to that for a moment, Jason is the one who sees what nobody else in that family sees, aside from Adelaide, and decides to pull the mask for the moment down and just kind of exist, and I guess see what happens, you know, now that he's basically kind of uncovered the movie's secret.
I mean, I just saw the pulling of the mask down as kind of just like silence or you know, just complicit, or just it almost just like, I'm gonna omit this. I'm not gonna think about that. And I think, like, I never, like, in that moment, because I don't see, obviously Adelaide is not the hero of the movie that, you know, what she's presented as by the end of the twist there. But I still, you know, the fact this is still her family, you know, she gave birth to them. It's not like these were Red's kids or anything. So I don't see anything of just Jason being like betrayer, or you're not my mother, or thing, because it's like, she is. So I don't know. And I heard so much speculation, like there were, like, probably, I don't know if, like, in this video that you saw, or just, but I remember hearing people talking after the movie came out, and just like, what, is Jason actually the there's like, some theory that he was, you know, also switched out, and just like, when, where right. Theory come from?
And what happened to all this then? The burning of the jaw.
I always took the burn because he was doing that trick with the lighter or whatever, and it burnt the Pluto. Yeah. And that's why, you know, he's burnt and Jason is not.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you something before I forget.
Ask me.
Just personal, because you were talking about your movie collection behind you, and I'm just super curious. Maybe some other people are, but you categorize them chronologically. What happens when you have, like, the Halloween movies? Do you also, or, like, you know, Friday the 13th or anything?
If I have a box set, I always go with the first movie, because that's when it entered consciousness of, you know, the mainstream, or just even a public at large. But if I have them separate, like, I have a lot of Halloweens on their own, because I don't have the box set. So I have Halloween where it belongs, Halloween 2 where it belongs, Halloween 3 where it belongs. That would
drive me insane. trying to find
It's just
everything.
interesting.
Like remembering.
Oh no. I maybe it's the way I think. Maybe I think chronologically,
Yeah.
and it just makes it more interesting because I don't know, alphabetically. See, that drives me nuts because I'm just like, you have no business being near that movie. So I either like to do it by genre, even if it's genre I created, like midnight movies or something like that, or chronologically like this. Alphabetically, that's so. Anybody can do
Pedestrian.
that.
The only problem I like alphabetical, but the only problem I ever run in with alphabetical is like what happens when you have a series of movies. For instance, when you go Silence of the Lambs and then you have Hannibal, but then it's just like, okay, so you move the Hannibal out of the H, but then what about Manhunter? Which is the one that came before that. Which one is the starting off point? Like which letter do you start with? So
that's actually
I find with like movies like that, I don't know how I have those categorized. It might be because I don't think I own Manhunter, but still like that's what drives me nuts. That's the only problem I run into with alphabetical categorization. We don't have to talk about this anymore. I knew that I would forget if I didn't ask you right now.
I think it's fascinating.
We can continue talking about us.
Okay. Oh, there was a point that I was going to make earlier about that, something that I had never noticed before that didn't have to do with the movie, but had to do with maybe horror movies at large that I really liked. And that was just like the Carnival motif in and of itself in the beginning. Yeah. Just the fact that like I was for the first time observing people paying for terror, like by getting on those roller coasters, and I think about how many times I've walked out of a horror movie I've really enjoyed as if I got off a roller coaster. Yeah. And even just thinking about like the way the only other thing you spend money on besides food there is to take a chance on something, like the way he's her father was playing all of the games and everything and trying to win something. I'm like, that's also a good metaphor, I feel, for going and seeing a horror movie. Because literally you're gambling.
We did see this a few weeks back with Cursed. Probably not as successful because we did have Shannon Elizabeth, get her fortune read by Portia de Rossi.
And it never occurred to me once, but this time it did.
But you mentioned another. I think it was when we were talking about 13 Ghosts, also with Shannon, where you said that movie, or I think it was specifically the Dark Castle movies in general, felt like carnival rides.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel that way with those movies. Maybe not so much with this one. Like, I love seeing the motif of the Santa Cruz pier and all that. Mm-hmm. Like, that was fun. It definitely stood out to me more in this movie than Cursed because that was such a 2-second thing and it was over. So yeah, I do like that. I like to see, and actually, funny thing is that they mention, or Adelaide's mother says, "Oh, I think they're shooting a movie down here," because she's just saying to the husband, "You should try to be an extra in it." And I think like with the timeline, I think it was like 1986, so the movie was actually The Lost Boys that was filmed there.
Yes.
So there's another horror movie with a carnival. Also, there's Child's Play 3. How can we forget?
Right. But I wanted to because you were we were to also jump off of that like family thing that I loved. Another thing that I loved were Adelaide's parents, proper Adelaide, shall we say, played by Anna Diop and Yahya Abdul Mateen II, who I'm a huge DC geek, so I know them both because Yahya played Black Manta in the Aquaman movie, and he also played a significant role in the Watchmen series, and Anna Diop is in Titans. So I'm like, oh my god, 2 DC heroes like Begat.
That means nothing
a Marvel
to me.
hero. That
means nothing to me, but I know that he did play in the new Candyman movie. He was the lead in that. He played Anthony, whatever his last name was. I don't remember.
He's wonderful.
Yeah.
I love them both. And they were also 2 other actors who I felt we get even less screen time with them than I think we do the Tylers. But whenever I love the fact that I feel like there were problems before the event of the movie and there were problems after and they probably never got resolved. the one kind of like light we get with her relationship to her parents is not from the true the Adelaide proper at all. It's most likely from Red stepping in as Adelaide after the fact, because there's a picture in the home that when they revisit it, it's there, of the mom standing with a cape with her hands on her hips, and it looks like a small Adelaide standing beneath her with her hands on her hips and in the cape also. And it's almost like maybe the first thing she did after her shell shock, car ride home and not speaking for as long as she did, maybe the first thing she did to embrace her power was, as the therapist encouraged the parents to let her do, use art to kind of manifest her story and tell them what happened to her.
It's pretty fucked up when you think about it, that though, like, her parents spent the majority of their life with their daughter, with someone who was not their daughter, thinking that it was their daughter. So, for all intents and purposes, that Adelaide, who I'm just going to call Adelaide for the purposes of this podcast, is their daughter. Yes. The daughter that they know. Whenever they got her back, or when she started talking, and it's just like, that's definitely that's where the you start to feel for Red, of just like realizing like, you had your life stolen, and you probably, like, I wonder if, like, the reverse of that, if the tethered parents realized that was not their daughter, because I think she couldn't I think that the implication of why she speaks like the way that you did at the beginning through the narration is because her larynx was crushed. I'm just thinking of the beginning of Halloween Resurrection. So she can no longer speak. That's why he got decapitated. So they just saw her, and they're just like thinking, because they can't say it, but they're just like, why are you handcuffed to the bedpost?
Did you not see there's a deleted scene that where it's actually their discovery of her? It's entitled "I Want to Go Home." Oh, it's heartbreaking, because also that actress who plays young Adelaide and young Red, Madison Curry. Oh my God! Like, talk about, like, I feel like I get a whole childhood when I see her. She just seems like this sweet, quiet, like in the flashback, like she seems like this sweet, quiet, just kind of like observant, like her son, or I guess like her tethered son, child who's just kind of like on the outskirts, just trying to make the best out of like what she can in this very awkward familial thing. Anyway, there's a deleted scene where she is laying there long after Adelaide has has taken her place and gone off, and she is now Red, and she's laying there handcuffed, and she just sees what she perceives to be her parents. But there's bunk beds, so it's blocking their faces. She sees their clothes though, and she's just like, "Mom, Dad," and they start moving towards her in this weird, she could speak. And she's just like, "I want to go home," and she didn't sound like, "I want to go home." So maybe that's why they didn't put it in. Also, there's not really a place for it in the movie, I guess, like in the course of the movie, but it was a heartbreaking scene to see, because they move into a position where she can see both of their faces, and the mom is all and the dad's all and she's just like terrified, as any child would be, because she realizes these are not her parents.
You bring up I was gonna say, because before you said that, you brought up a good point that I didn't think about, because all I could say is, like, she could have easily just found the escalator, gone up, if she's prone to just wandering off, and then come back up to the surface easily, and figured it out. Like, I don't know, like all the planning and stuff, but because you said she saw these people and would have thought that they were her parents and wouldn't want to leave them at that point. So I would argue then that she did think that it was her parents, but obviously something had happened to them, and that's why she didn't want to leave, because she wanted to stay there with her parents, or that who she thought was her parents.
If you saw the look on her face, she didn't seem to
well, maybe it was more because of just the trauma, and I love using that word. The trauma of what had happened, and then also just being like confused of like, why is she here all of a sudden in this bunker, and why are her parents acting weird?
Also, probably not knowing how to
Yeah.
navigate the way out because she wasn't conscious
Yeah.
for the voyage.
I mean, it didn't
down,
seem like
so-
wherever they were staying was pretty close. To
Yeah.
be, and that's why I bring up like where they drive back home after they leave their summer home. Like where are they
Yeah.
going? It seemed like Red was always stationed at that place, and it also brings up the prospect of if the people on the surface are the ones controlling the body or the mind or whatever, wouldn't Red now, which I'm calling her, still be in control? Like everything that she does, Adelaide would now mimic, or does the transferring of like whoever's on the surface dictate who's in control?
Well, see, I love that you're asking this question because this is the thing. This is where the symbology of the movie and its kind of omnipresence throughout the movie really, really helps it because it makes me think of everything as metaphor and it makes me not take things quite so literally. And it makes me think, well, of course, whoever is going to be up above is going to be in power because environment, because also what you're shut up into, if you are put underground. I always remember the story about the yellow wallpaper that drove the people mad because there's yellow walls, or basically like kind of creamy yellow walls, like underneath, like in the subway systems or wherever they are. Oh, I don't even remember if it's Edgar Allan Poe or who wrote it, but it was some story that was told to me. Maybe it was Joseph Conrad. I don't remember, but a friend once, like very, very late at night, told me the story of like someone who was driven mad by yellow wallpaper, and it's just stayed with me. I'll do my research and we'll discuss it whenever we do a pod about yellow wallpaper. But anyway, just in terms of like confinement and also just being susceptible, especially at a young age, and the shock of being put. I mean, if Adelaide, in quotes, was shocked by being in a car, living a life of luxury with two parents who are arguing as to like who has her best interest at heart more so. And I can only imagine what poor Red must have experienced, realizing she's completely incapacitated with all of these mad people who are eating raw rabbit and who are wearing, rags and who have no speech. And I mean, and that's what makes, that's actually one thing in my, again, headcanon. But I am a headcanon queen. That's who I am. But the fact that I feel like when you're surrounded by people who don't speak language, and maybe even if you attempted to try and teach it to them, you're also a child. The adults are the ones who are in power. So you're probably going to just kind of like be submissive and just try to be, make things run as smoothly as possible.
Well, they also even said that it wasn't until she was a teenager and started doing the ballet that they were like, they noticed her. They noticed that there was something different about her.
And all of a sudden they wanted to follow her. And that's when she started preparing for this uprising, this what Jordan Peele calls a dark Easter, which I love. But I did want to ask you, just because we're discussing kind of like the political nature of like their interactions and everything like that, and maybe the rules of like the tethered and the surface dwellers, as it were. I've heard different people share different theories about why they think Dahlia, Kitty's shadow, spares Adelaide. Like here they're killing people left and right, but they take Adelaide and they just, basically cuff her to the bed. Like they take the cuff she's already got and just kind of like tether her to the bed. Her to the bed upstairs. Yet, and yet Adelaide, moments later when she's alone, kills one of the twins' shadows. I wondered if that spoke to any kind of, shall we say, social norms or social rules they might have about how they treat their own. And like, because I've heard people say they think that Dahlia knew that Adelaide was really one of the underground people, and they had a rule about not hurting each other.
I think that I don't know that they would know that the underground people would have seen Adelaide as anyone other than Red's tether. I would have just assumed that they think that Red is one of them. So if anything, maybe because I didn't even think about that. I just thought that they spared her for story purposes, because you can't kill off the lead of your the movie. Obviously,
right.
for Adelaide's reasons, she's trying to cover up her truth of just who she actually is.
Yes.
So of course she's going to kill off the tethered, because she needs to make sure that she's showing that she's of the above, or whatever we're calling it. As for just thinking about it now, for the maybe another possibility as to why Kitty or Dahlia, the Kitty doppelganger, kept Adelaide alive, is because when we have the interaction between Kitty and Adelaide on the beach, Kitty is very much like she's very vain, and she's just like, oh, did you notice anything different? Because she got her like the little facelift or whatever. So I think that maybe she kept her as like a captive audience, because she was just like, look how pretty I am. And you see, because I didn't even ever notice this, because like Dahlia has the scars on her her face, because from the procedure of whatever Kitty got, Dahlia would have gotten as well underground. And see, these are things. This would have been. It would have been cool if like we had never known that they were like mimicking each other, because that would have been like discourse to have, of just like, why do you suppose she has scars on her face, separating her from her upper ground doppelganger. But I saw that more of just like, look how pretty I am, because that's what she does. She wants like other people to see her showing off, or I don't know. I think it was just for story purposes, but maybe more so just because Red would have just been like, no, you're not going to hurt my
that's what I thought.
Because I'm gonna take because I thought maybe it was a thing where just like you're only allowed to kill your doppelganger, but obviously that's not the case, because like we see Umbre kill the guy who's like, get off my car, and clearly like they're just going out all willy-nilly in the streets with their scissors, and
we see
people.
Tex, Josh's shadow, going after Gabe and everything, like, and fully intending to like kill him off too. So so I agree with you. I didn't think, I wondered that for a second. I thought, well, there's too many other there's too many tethered people who are going after, like, the surface dwellers who aren't their doppelgangers. So, okay, that's out but I do agree with you. I felt like if Red was in charge, and we are led to believe, for all intents and purposes, she was the one who led this revolution and is the reason that it happened in the first place. There must have been some means of communicating to all of them that her shadow self, or her surface self, is hers. Must be preserved, because that's what it's all about, really. It's about like a long, slow, painful grind, like that face into the breaking glass of the table when they first have that scene. Oh, that scene! Oh my God, when the family. Okay, because that's another thing I want to talk about, just in terms of like what I adore about this movie that I didn't even realize until I heard them talking about shooting it, was like the problem they had, or that Jordan Peele had, with like, okay, what do I shoot first? Like, do I shoot my tethered people, or do I shoot like, and what am I, how much feedback do I get from my actors about that, or should I take the reins on this? Like, what do I do? And through discussions with all of them, they found that whoever is in control of the scene should be the one who shoots first, because then at least you can manifest how they're occupying the space, and then the actor who's playing it can then get changed, and the next day play the other side of it. And since, and since they've already played it, they know what level they need to be at to react to the person who is dominating.
And they can also watch the dailies and just like see, like, okay, this is what. This is how I played it. So this is how I got to react now.
But that's another thing I love about it, is it never once enters my mind, like, back in, like, again, I love the 80s, but back in like the days of the 80s sitcom, where someone would inevitably, or sometimes it happened in the 60s too, but when someone would inevitably have a twin or a doppelganger. But I mean, even on like television, like, where like Facts of Life or Different Strokes or whatever, where like you'd get the actor in drag, or you'd get like, oh, they're or Patty Duke, they're cousins, identical cousins, whatever. And Genie had an evil twin. Bewitched had an evil twin. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And you'd always know there was a camp aspect to it, a playfulness to it, because you could literally even sometimes see the line dividing the screen, and the actors would never cross that line. I don't get that once from this movie. I never feel like I'm watching doubles play against the actors. I never feel like I'm watching a CGI face put onto a double's body, and sometimes that is the case.
Well, this is a very expensive movie, and actually,
Right.
I'm just like looking at some more trivia here, because Jason Blum, because he obviously produced Get Out, and they had asked him to just come back and produce Get Out, or sorry, Us as well, and he's just like, no, this is outside of his low budget standards. Like, everything has to be a low budget movie. So I'm just like, all right, you go do you. But he missed out on a good thing, because it's just like, if they had continued with him, I'm sure that him and Jordan Peele would have had a working relationship still. Blumhouse probably would have done Candyman and Nope. Yeah,
Jason
Hollywood.
Blum, my God. We got to find some nice things to say about Jason Blum at some point.
Well,
but
we
I
got
just don't have
the
any right
Halloween podcast coming up. I don't know if I'll have anything nice to say, but you might.
Maybe. One thing I wanted to ask you: did you ever, at any point in your initial viewing of this movie, guess like the twist, like guess the reveal that we get about Red and Adelaide and their identities?
No, actually, I didn't. I'm really bad for like calling the twist. I mean, like, even like the Scream movies, I don't think I might have made like a good guess one time for one of the killers the first time I saw it, and it turned out to be true. But I'm usually not to say that I'm surprised by the end, but I'm just like, there's never a point like at the beginning of watching a movie that I'm just like, oh, this is where it's heading. This is what's going to happen. Obviously, like, hindsight is 20/20, and you can go back and
Right.
you can watch Us
Of
from the
course,
beginning,
yeah.
and when you see all the weird shit when Adelaide is just like not acting normally and just like weird behavior. There's like something else, like they're all eating and they all have fast food, and she's like nibbling on strawberries, and that was another thing people are saying, well, because she doesn't know how to eat, and it's just like, what? I don't get that. I don't know why she's just watching her figure,
Yeah, I mean, somebody with Lupita Nyong'o's figure is probably going to eat strawberries while her family eats fast food. But
Yeah.
I love the fact that, but I remember it occurred to me, I think, as like a scrolling thought.
Yeah.
Well, I watched it the first time. The way a lot of things occur to me, like, wait, maybe they did. But I was too on the ride. I couldn't like really. I didn't go like, oh, I know what this is. I know what's going on. I still gay gasped when it was revealed. I was like, like sitting there in the theater. But
my stars,
my star, my clutching the pearls. But I do. Yeah, I do remember it occurring to me, like, as it was going on. But it's also one of those things where it's like, oh, that's too crazy. They wouldn't be doing that. Like, I even felt like when she was moving kind of in her more bestial side, like when she does kill the twin, and she's got that, moment that she gets caught by her son, like
very
oh,
primal.
Sorry. Yeah, you caught me backstage. Sorry, I didn't have my makeups on. But I love the fact that, even then I thought like it could be possible that she swapped places with her, but it could also just be a point that Jordan Peele's trying to make about that, and that there's no divide, between the underclass and the upper class. It's just we're just as connected to them as they are to us, and we have just as much perceived animal instinct as they do.
I feel like the twist, I mean, the movie probably like mostly would have been the same for me with or without the twist. I think the twist at the end definitely makes it a little bit more memorable, and obviously gives it that rewatch factor, which I think it's just good for one rewatch personally. But I think that because it's a very like M. Night Shyamalan thing. Am I saying his name right? I never know if I say it right. And it's funny that because
it sounds right.
yeah, because that's one of the movies.
Shyamalan.
The Sixth Sense was one of the movies that that Jordan Peele gave to them to review. I guess for the shared language, as he said. So maybe that's the Sixth Sense was sort of like the build up for this twist of just like that's what we're gonna find out at the end, is that she did swap places. That was our twist here.
Right. And it's interesting to me that like here we've had so many conversations thus far about like, fun in horror movies and carnival rides. You already even touched on it in this pod, but and how much I gravitate toward that. I don't know how much fun I have with this movie. I think it's more about discovery. I think it's more about the fact that it is kind of like singular and even kind of like I don't think I'm ever more impressed with a director than I am by someone who can satisfy my appetite as a movie audience, like as a moviegoer. Like, can I eat popcorn to it? Even though I don't really eat popcorn, but sometimes I do. But can I, can I go out on
all stuck in your teeth?
Yeah. Can I get out there and like just sit down and have a good old movie going time? Or, but also in addition to that, it satisfies more and more for me, obviously. The palette for, I don't know, just like exquisitely architectured cinema. I feel like everything is like so incredibly placed. Like as exquisitely placed as everything was for Get Out, in comparison, which is not fair, but in comparison, Get Out feels much simpler to me. The lines feel cleaner, and Us feels... It's not a mess. It's still just as meticulously put together. I just feel like there's more stones glued in place, or more jewels, like to kind of like behold and uncover. Yeah. And something about that attention to detail, it just really speaks to me. And also,
I mean, I think that this was definitely like a much more difficult movie for him to make. And I remember him saying that of just like, it's, he wanted the challenge sort of thing, but it just like I don't think he was mentally prepared for it or something. It's just like I didn't realize how much of a challenge it was going to be, because Get Out is so simple and streamlined, and that's kind of what I love about it. I think that like it's almost it's the idea of less is more, and I think that Get Out definitely doesn't, or sorry, Us definitely does not adopt that mentality, because it's almost like more for less. And for me, it's just basically. Also, it could just like, as far as palette, if I can use like a food motif, it's probably like differences of spices to me. Like maybe Get Out is basil, and I love basil, but I love oregano. So Us is oregano for me. If I had to choose between them, I would love to combine them both. I love that they both exist. Yeah. Well, yeah. I wonder what Nope is going to be. It's going to be
Nope
cilantro.
Gonna be like, or chili peppers, or I don't know. It'll be something else that I adore. I'm sure it won't be garlic salt. I hate that. But
unless you hate Nope, and then you're just like, this is garlic salt to me.
I guess we'll see. Only time will tell. And one other thing, just in terms of like the pieces of this movie, it's something that I had to watch a lot when we were working on Fright Club. And I remember I loved when I would write the scripts
we did a Get Out versus Us.
Versus Us, yes. And I remember I had to watch them both, a couple times, and then I'd keep, especially with those scores, I'd keep playing them whenever I was writing, like, the paragraphs, arguments for, whatever point of view, like, we were trying to, like, express. And I remember just sitting there, and what I ended up discovering with Us that I would encourage everybody who owns it. I think if you order it on, and we're not getting a kickback from them, but if you order it on Apple TV on their app, you still get like the Blu-ray bonus features and everything like that. So that's something to keep in mind if you don't already own it on Blu-ray or 4K or whatever you own. But there's it's not a deleted scene, but it's just kind of like a standalone edit of the dance that Adelaide and Red do, because that's incorporated with the fight during the climax.
Is it scored with the
yes, with the Nutcracker? No, it's the Nutcracker
Luna's?
Ballet.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's scored with the
Interesting.
Nutcracker Ballet, and you get to see there was something that was actually choreographed. That the actress who played her as a teenager at 16 years old, played both of them, had to do these dances, one on stage, in front of like an actual audience, and then one like underground in front of like the people under the blinking lights. But the thing about watching it, with just watching kind of like the juxtaposition of Red versus Adelaide and their dances. I found it really, really heartbreaking, and it makes me kind of sad that, I'm glad I got to experience it, but it makes me kind of sad that it doesn't exist like that in the movie, because watching it as one uniform sequence, there's something so incredibly heartbreaking about their duality and the injustice of it all, and it just cuts right to my heart. And these, words like injustice and everything like that, like these are big words that we can throw around and that we can get, all fired up about and, discuss politics. But when you talk about actual injustice, on a personal level, where you observe a child being abducted from their life and handcuffed to a bed to be raised by two, shall we say, incapable parent figures, and has to try to find the light in the darkness, as it were. Like, I don't know, it's just incredibly moving. And then the fact that it all ends with Red kind of collapsed on the floor underneath just like a shaft of light that's coming from, like one of the subway lights. And the people all move from where they were standing in their audience section and encircle her. And they just stand there silently and look at her. And I can't remember if they reach for her or anything like that, but it's almost like the Messiah has been chosen. And I don't know, it's incredibly moving. I'd encourage anybody who has access to it to check it out. It might be on YouTube. I don't know. I should have done my research. Maybe I'll post it myself.
I also just wanted to because the whole comment about just we're Americans, and I guess just sort of like the duality of the title of the movie being us and also U.S. Yeah, I'm sure that one is not new to anyone, but I thought I would throw it out there just in case. One thing, and I'm just browsing just to see if there's other trivia that comes up. But one thing I did want to mention that I had and then I lost and then I have again is just like the sort of what Red's like end game is sort of deal, because we see obviously the Tethered, they want to do the hands across America, which is foreshadowed in the very first shot when she's watching the commercial on TV. But there's also a line that she says during the scene where they invade the house, and she says something about like, I forget who it might have been to Pluto or whatever, just like play nicely, or just like don't wreck our house. So I think it's just like, this is our house, like we're moving in to this house when it's all said and done. But at the same time, it doesn't seem like clearly she speaks very poorly of Abraham and Umbre. I think that Pluto is the only one that she's just like really had any love for out of that family. So it just like she obviously wasn't very upset like after Abraham died, and we didn't really see her post mortem of Umbre, but what's his face walking backwards into the fire, that obviously precipitated her to abduct Jason and take him away with her. Right. So I don't know, do you think she was wanting to set up home at the Adelaide or the Wilsons' summer house and live there with her family?
Honestly, I do. I think she would have been fine with them going off gallivanting and doing whatever they do and just coming back when they feel like it, because as tethered as she was to Adelaide, it's interesting. It was more because she didn't choose it. That's the thing. That's the whole point of her story about the girl in the shadow, is that the girl made decisions that ultimately drove the shadow to have to be with Abraham and to beget this monster, which also I think I started to say it and I didn't get to finish the thought, but just Umbre is the scariest thing about the movie to me.
Oh yeah.
Red is right below her,
Yeah.
but ombre, just Shahadi Wright Joseph's like leering, like head dip with the eyes,
blinking.
no blinking, and just that horrible, that she mastered this wonderful, horrible intent to do harm to you. Like, you don't know what she's going to do to you, but you know she's thinking about it. You know, she just can't wait. And also the fact that she's the one who gets to do the Michael Myers walk first when Zora's running away, and she just walks out of the house at a slow pace.
And she always has that like unsettling smile on her face too. I like the first time that we do see Red. I mean, I look kind of more like up close, like when she walks into the house, because she doesn't just like, her walking is so like robotic and mechanical, because she's walking she can only walk in straight lines, so it's just like walk, turn body at a
pivot.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna do a 90-degree angle, and now we're gonna keep walking this way. That you're just like, you know that she's in charge, and she's a scary bitch. That's the thing, like and you know, and it's funny because like the female character, the female doppelgangers always seemed more formidable than the male ones, because you know, we see Abraham and we see Josh, or like whatever Josh's doppelganger name is, and they just seem goofy and like Tex, just like
Tex seemed a lot like Josh.
They just like they're not capable. Pluto seems like very like non violent, like he's just like a very passive tethered.
The scariest thing about Pluto for me is just chaos, because there is something about there's something about just like the body language of just like this unbridled kind of like and also insistent, like I can see why, and definitely understand why Jason is afraid of him, beyond just like the burn reveal and beyond the fact that you're facing your doppelganger and you don't know anything about why, but just the energy in and of itself I can see is like threatening, but he also seems like he can be.
The female ones, like they were the ones that were like, you had to be scared. Like even the twins, because they were just like crazy. There's just like this frenetic energy, and I liked how, you know, when we see the twins the first time, like the I keep wanting to say human, they're all human, but like the above level twins, because they're doing cartwheels and stuff, but then like the tethered ones, they're flipping around all over the place. That's kind of their style. As well. I also did want to mention, because we talk about wardrobe and like color and symbology and all that, and how Adelaide is dressed in white throughout the movie, and then progressively her clothing becomes more and more bloodstained to the point where it is all red, which is kind of like just the showing that she has become red, or she is red, and it's just sort of like, you know, she's now who she started out as.
Essentially caught like red-handed, would you say? Because I mean, I didn't think about it in terms of like the outdamned spot Lady Macbeth washing of the hands to cleanse them, even though she has the blood on the hands metaphorically, but not literally.
I mean, I think that she's Adelaide a little bit
literal
more,
blood.
Yeah, she's a little bit more like stable. Like she does have those moments where she's, you know, freaking out, but she's the one in control here. So I don't really see her as a Lady Macbeth.
No. But she is. Well, I think she's, because this is the thing. Oh, God. Okay. Lupita Nyong'o, in an interview that I saw, she was discussing like the research that she did for each one of them. And the research that she did for Adelaide was the one that was particularly interesting to me, because she researched people who have imposter complexes. She researched people who have like murdered someone and now have to live with the guilt and everything like that. And how do you commit some kind of heinous crime and then go on about a typical day, or even a typical life, you know, like day by day. And I get that in her performance, and I also get and I noticed it after the fact. I just kind of thought like, oh, she's in the know, she knows what she's doing. But there's that one scene where they first return to the house, and she's just kind of like moving about it, and she gets to the room where she first started her dancing, where she has like the bar, the ballet bar,
mirror,
and everything like that, and the mirror. And there's this close-up of her face where she's almost looks like she's orbiting herself, like it's got this Gloria Swanson down the staircase at the end of Sunset Boulevard kind of tilt of the head. And it's not exactly madness. It's not chaos. It's not unbridled. It's not even crazy, but it's just a little outside normality. And I love that because she is still very much, this person who knows exactly what her life was before. And I mean, because, that's another thing I loved. It's just like the body language of little Adelaide that Madison Curry does when little underground Adelaide, like the imposter, when she's just got her head dipped down. And just like the way she stomps away from the bed, after she pulls the Thriller t-shirt on. It's so malicious and so tonally everything.
You just needed her to like do the Mr. Burns fingers. They like
yes, excellent. It is. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, we could talk about the actors.
Well, we don't have that much more time, but
no.
Yeah, I did love the kind of like that manic energy of just like kind of like going from that sort of like we see this with Elizabeth Moss. That's the actress, right?
Yeah, that's the actress. Playing Kitty.
Yeah. Well, at this point, playing Dahlia, and it's always like she's looking out the window, and I don't know if she's like looking at like the boat and seeing that Tex is dead, but she sort of has this like this heartbreak and this like, but then it's just like she's overcome with this like this laughter, this like, and obviously not making the noises, but just like miming the appearance of just like, because it's just like, is she happy that he's dead or so? It's just like it's like a big joke. And that I love because that is like you could peel that apart. Just trying to figure out.
Could you Jordan Peele that apart?
Okay, taking it a little too far there, but just like what is it? What understanding kind of like the psychology of the Tethered a little bit more in little moments like that without actually having the exposition that we do at the end, just being like, oh, and this is what happened here and once upon a time. Like that's what I love. I love like the ambiguity and not knowing. So
me too. Hysteria.
I don't know if I have anything else to say. Do you?
Yes, but I'll save it for possibly. We'll see how things go, but possibly I'll save it for my cherry picker argument. We'll see.
Okay. All right. But any final thoughts in that regard?
I mean, I feel like people genuinely know where you stand on this film and where I stand, and we're.
I don't think it's like contentious. Like I don't hate it. I'm just
of course
like
not.
I gave it 3.5 stars on Letterboxd as I give it a rating after I watch it.
Out of how many?
5. And it's at 3.7. That was the average of where it's at on there right now. So
that disappoints me, but it also makes me feel kind of elitist, like in a good way. Like I don't know. I mean, I love it when people don't love the things, by and large, that I absolutely adore, because it makes me think, okay, it's mine. Even though obviously it belongs to the world.
And more people should have that mentality of just like, I don't need you to like this because I like it, and fuck you.
Yeah. And
don't tell them fuck you. Just be like,
no. But if it speaks personally to me, and if that doesn't appeal to everyone, I consider that a plus, because it's like, good. What speaks to you? That's the question. Is like, you don't have to like what I like, but what I love is when people. I've had this with a few things that I've shared with some friends, where I show them something I absolutely adore that feels like it's in my DNA, and they go, why? After they've seen it, they're just like, I have no idea what you experience when you watch it, because it's just, I don't know what that was about. That was boring, and I'm just like, oh, but no. And then I'm like, I can't explain it to you. You have to watch it a few more times. Like, I'm never gonna watch it again. Anyway, that's just me.
Okay. Well, on that note, let's get to the cherry picker. All right, first order of business, we got to pick a cherry on top. for this movie. I don't know if this is going to be difficult or not, and I don't need to argue any point. I personally, I just like, it's my cherry on top is Lupita Nyong'o. I don't know if that means Red or Adelaide. Personally, I mean, I don't know. You might not even think that she's the cherry on top, but I think personally I would go with Adelaide just because she's so much more complex of at least what we see throughout the movie. That's who I would choose, but who knows? Maybe that's your cherry picker. So I don't want to disrupt the flow of things here.
No, because the thing is, when I watch her do that speech as Red, that's what made me think she needs to win the Oscar this year. Not that the Oscars mean shit, but I was like,
no,
nobody's going to do nobody. I was going to say like nobody is going to do better than this.
Yeah.
And it does. It's no, which is not a knock on Adelaide, but but Red is the one that I still kind of like get spellbound by. But I think there's an argument to be made. I won't make a full argument and say it has to be this person. But I've been praising Shahadi Wright Joseph as Zora and as Ombre, and I just want her in the contention. Yeah.
It can only be one. Because these are.
But it can only be one.
Actually, that'll be interesting for the cherry picker this week because that they do count as separate. Per the rules,
they do
as separate entities.
So can we meet halfway and do a Red?
Yeah, I don't get. Yeah, we can Red if you want to do
awesome.
Red as the cherry on top. Okay, so Red. Is our cherry
red.
on top.
It's too red.
Yeah, that. So anyway, for the cherry picker, last week we asked you who deserves to die the most in Black Phone, or the Black Phone. Wow. I said the Grabber. You said Terrence Shaw. And across
father.
What's that?
The alcoholic father.
That's right. And across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, the vote came to 264 for the Grabber and 110 for Terrence Shaw.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for showing up.
I knew I was gonna lose. Like I just, he's the heavy of the designated heavy of the film, and there were some people who actually reached out to me and said like, he actually kills kids, and I was like, I get it, and
we know, that's the thing. It's just like that. I mean,
I can't pick what Zach picked.
Were you gonna pick, if you had won the previous round? Were you gonna pick the Grabber first?
Honestly,
because you talked about how
much thought to it.
Well, because you talked about in the episode, you talked about how the Grabber, and I agree with you, is just like he wasn't even like the biggest threat. He wasn't like the scariest thing of the movie.
So I probably wouldn't have, but I'm not that invested. I don't care.
And for me, because like I said, these are all for jokes, and I just picked the Grabber thing. I thought that he sucked, and I just sure, kill him, like. But let's see what everyone else is saying. Norma Paniche. If Terrence is the dad, he is, that is my vote, but a little confused because it says his name is actually Terrence Blake. That scene with the younger sister was frankly the most disturbing to me. Also, not choosing the Grabber because I want Ethan Hawke to be in the sequel. I don't know about Terrence Blake because you did the research. You said that he was Terrence Shaw, and I think
mine was off IMDb. So.
Yeah, I looked at somewhere and it said Shaw. Maybe is that like the book? Because didn't you say it was based on a book?
Oh, maybe it was. Or short story. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe the name was Blake. I don't know. Maybe a little bit more elaboration on that. But no, that's fair. I mean, when you have Ethan Hawke in a movie, you should use him, and we discussed that. But I felt that he was underused. Kimberly Monroe says, "Ooh, I'll be seeing this tomorrow." So I assume Kimberly has seen it by now. Can't wait for the episode to come out, but I'm going to say the Grabber just from what I know already. So that the typical mentality of just the who is the biggest abuser of the two. Dayman Fighter of the Nightman says, haven't seen it. If it's good, I'll add it to my backlog.
All right.
JR, I need to find the rules again because I thought you guys couldn't pick the main villain. Seems like an obvious pick, no?
He's a human, though.
Yeah.
If he's human, we can pick the main villain.
The rules, I know that they're listed in if you scroll down the community tab, they're there somewhere. They're also on the Instagram. If you go through the story highlights under Cherry Picker, they're one of the slides there, I guess. So you can go over, but yeah, they still apply. You know, we officially made the rules, so yeah, he does count. Paul B, pretty hard to pick anyone other than the grabber. And then Mong Bobby, come on, man, the movie just came out. So
what? We didn't spoil anything.
Yeah, there's no. It's who deserves to die the most. You know, there's no. That doesn't say that either of them die because obviously.
All right, well, thanks for sharing, kid.
To say anything, but it's funny because
Yeah,
when I
right.
started doing this on Instagram, and I think it was when we did. What was the first movie that we did that was like a theatrical? It might have been X. Or no, it was Texas Chainsaw. It was Texas Chainsaw 22. And someone messaged me and they're just like, "Thanks for spoiling the movie." I'm just like, I didn't spoil shit. Like you're just you know, if you're not listening to the podcast, don't chime in on things that you don't know anything about. Otherwise, we don't. You know, we might very well in the episode discussing it, like spoil it because we're assuming that you had seen the episode as well. And you know that's why we encourage, like, if you haven't seen it, don't listen or watch the episode. But in terms of the cherry picker, that's always the rule is like that they don't have to be a character that's killed off. They can still be living by the time the credits roll. It's just about who deserves to. And I think at the beginning I might have like written it as who deserved to, and I changed it to deserves. Just to kind of eliminate that confusion. So yeah.
So it doesn't sound like we're saying among the people who died, who deserved it
so
the most. That is not the game.
Bobby, keep up. But thank you for commenting as well. Wolfgang Oshman says awesome movie. Silent Saturn says the grabber for sure. Terrence is a terrible person, an even worse father, but at least his children are alive, and there's hope they get out of there at some point and live their lives. The grabber's victims don't have that. Somebody
the grabber's
says
victims have the black phone, but anyway, go on.
Which doesn't even it's been destroyed. You know? Somebody says the grabber. Thomas Baker says Mr. Shaw, and. Ginger bread geek, and I'm reading that right. It's not beard, bread. How is the grabber not voted 100-0? You know, it's everyone has their preference.
Yeah, some people were more affected by that scene of actual abuse than the threat of abuse from the main bad. Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? Anyway, I like that. No one has to vote 100% for anything. But my favorite is when it comes so close.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah. Anyway, for us, God, I got to pick someone. And this is a very hard one. I'm just going to go with, fuck it, Kitty.
Really?
Because I mean, nothing against Elizabeth Moss or her performance or anything. I'm just like, she's basically just like, one of like the Real Housewives or something. Like she just sucks. Like you just know she's a real bitch. And she's not in the movie enough to like really care. Honestly, this was a hard one. I don't know. There's no one else I could think about, so I'm just going with her. It's just because she's just like, her whole shtick is like being rude to her husband, and who knows what their dynamic is, but it's just like, what do we say? Just like fuck you, or whatever her line is. No,
but I enjoy her side of it so much more than his. I enjoy her a lot.
I know I enjoy her, and that's why it's hard to to pick this.
To kill her?
Yeah, but I'm just like, we have to kill someone. I mean, I could pick one, like the twins, but I'm just like, I'd have to narrow it down to one of them, and they're basically
One of them, yeah.
I
same
don't know the
person.
difference between them, so
No,
I'm not
neither
gonna.
do I.
Yeah, unless you want to pick one of them, and I'll pick the other. I'm just gonna go, just for the sake of making it easier for everyone. I'm gonna go with Kitty, and maybe this will be the end of my streak. We'll see. So let's say
That
you.
would be the true test of whether it's a popularity contest or not. If you picked one twin and I picked the other one, because nobody's going to know the difference. But anyway, okay, my choice. If I've given any kind of indication, I tried not to. I didn't want to show my hand too much during the pod.
Yeah.
But you brought up. Before I get into it, you brought up the significance of the title "Us" versus "US." There's another significance for me that occurred when I screened it today, and it's something Jordan Peele has covered in interviews. But it's the significance of when you accept that there is an us, there is also always a them that follows, and it just made me think about Adelaide, who is my choice for the person who deserves to die most in this movie, because number one, everything gets set into motion as far as the isolated events of the movie because of Adelaide. And I mean that in a bad way. Like, all the worst things happen because of her choice when she was a little girl and she decided. And it was spelled out for me in the speech that Red gives when she's talking about how she used to, I don't remember if she said she used to dream or she used to wonder why they needed to be switched and why they couldn't just go back to the surface together. And it made me think, that's why I have a problem with Adelaide. She wants to beat the system, but she doesn't want to do anything to disrupt it. She just wants to be in the position of power and put her doppelganger in the position of submission and, dire straits and everything like that. And I don't like that. I think the two of them could have been trailblazers for opening up this huge secret for what was happening in the country, and started, healing, or started even just like, understanding like what was going on, and maybe making some kind of peace, finding some means of solution. It probably would have also introduced a whole host of other kinds of like problems socially and politically and socioeconomically and all of that. But at least the truth would have been out, and at least people would have been faced with their doppelgangers, and each person could have made a decision, and there would have been no need for an uprising between the classes. It could have been a breakdown of the system by and large, and instead of just playing the game, Adelaide plays the game and wants and does everything to fight for her privilege that she has stolen. And I don't think either of them deserve it. But that's not what it's about. It's not about what you deserve. It's about recognizing each other's humanity, and that seems to be the last thing in the world Adelaide wants to do with Red or with any of the tethered people. Maybe with the exception of the children, the tethered children of Red. Because she does have that moment with Umbre while she's hanging there upside down, and she does seem to have an affinity for young Pluto when he gets burned and everything. She doesn't want it to happen, but those are the only two, and I think it's just because she knew what it was like to be a child in that situation. But adult, fuck you. And you don't look anything like my kid, fuck you. So fuck Adelaide, you deserve to die.
Okay. Well, there you have it. You can vote for Kitty, or you can vote for Adelaide. And that will be open on the Cherry Picker on YouTube in the community section. That will be on our Instagram account at the Cherry Picker Pod, and also on Patreon if you want to support me under Zach Cherry. The poll will be there as well. I do want to welcome some new Patreon supporters. So we've got Jackie Simmons, G Dread 11, Josh, Steve, Brian, and Haley Triest. So thank you to all of you. If you would like to support my channel or the podcast on Patreon, The $1 tier gets you early access to these episodes. And also, if you want to sign up for the $5 tier, we do a bonus episode once a month. The one that we have coming up for July here, we're really excited about. We are going to be ranking all of the final girls, or at least the ones that we can agree to, make this list. And
more rules.
I know that Adelaide is going to be on there, so I'm very interested to see where we settle with her.
Yeah.
So if you want to hop on Patreon, you will get to see that episode or listen to it. I also do want to thank Andre Felix, who is our faithful editor. So thank you. And also, we do have a review on Apple Podcasts.
Ooh.
Which
I
will read to you right now. So from Taylor Williams, 1313, let's discuss horror. This is the perfect podcast for all things horror. The two hosts, Zach and Edward, have wonderful chemistry and banter. I think we do.
I think so too.
Their knowledge of horror films and the behind-the-scenes trivia makes this podcast stand out from the others.
Oh,
thank you.
That's so sweet.
Thank you, Taylor Williams. If anyone else would love to go on Apple Podcasts and leave us a review, it definitely goes a long way in helping the podcast algorithmically. I don't know if that's a word, but I like saying it.
It is. It is now.
Yeah, that's right. Otherwise, for everyone else, I just want to remind you that if you are new to the podcast, you can watch these episodes on YouTube. If you are just listening to it, that's, again, on the Cherry Picker channel. And if you are watching us on YouTube for the first time, you can also listen to the podcast. The RSS feed is in the link in the descriptions down below. And social media, where can they find you, Eduardo?
You can find me at Edward is Truth, one word, on Instagram. And I do have a YouTube channel that is a bit stagnant at the moment. There is a movie reaction coming. I just have to finish editing it, and it's been a week. So it'll happen.
Every time you bring it up, you're just like, I also have a YouTube, but, you know.
It'll happen. It'll happen. There's a lot of things going on right now, folks. No. It's not that it's not great. It's just not consistent. Let's put it that way. It'll happen when it happens. When it happens, I hope you like it. It's also Edward is Truth, all one word.
Well, at least you're honest.
Yeah.
You can find me on Instagram at RetroBitchface, all one word. You can find me on YouTube, my main channel, Zach Cherry. Just look it up. That's with a K. And also on Twitter at ZachCherry8. And then again, of course, you can find our podcast Instagram at retro. I keep doing that. No. That's my own. At the Cherry Picker Pod.
You're so selfish.
I am basically. Maybe not as selfish as Adelaide, but I
want to see you and us too. That's what I want to see.
What would each of our doppelgangers names be?
Okay, yours could be. I'm going to look at a random word in my notes. Yours is cranberry.
Cranberry?
Yes, and mine. Or do you get to choose mine? You want to choose mine?
Yeah, I'll choose yours. Dog whistle. I don't know.
I'll take it. Because, oh my God, my doppelganger would be noiseless, be the opposite of me. Here I'm laughing and screaming and, dog whistle. I like it.
Do you have any idea what next week's episode is?
I don't remember.
No, you never do.
Can you tell me? Can you tell everybody?
Next week, we will be covering Identity from 2003.
Oh, that's right. I knew that.
Great movie, great murder mystery. So if you haven't seen it yet, try to find it somewhere. I don't know if it's streaming or anything, but I'm sure you can find it. And even if you have seen it before, watch it again. because we're going to jump into that one. It's a really great early 2000s movie. So with that said, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we will be right back.